Imagine walking into a room and feeling an immediate, crushing sense of drag. Your heart rate spikes, your palms go cold, and out of the corner of your eye, you see a gray, shadowy figure leaning against the wall. It would not be unreasonable to suggest I was terrified. You turn to look, and it's gone. You aren't losing your mind. You've just been hit by a frequency, 18.9 Hz.
And we are testing the story currently that there is a certain frequency of sound too low for the human ear to hear that can still make people feel uneasy and lead them to believe that a place is haunted.
It is known as the ghost frequency, and it's the perfect example of why sound has, throughout history, been treated as a dangerous, forbidden weapon. When we talk about censorship in music, we usually think about the lyrics. We think about the parent advisory stickers of the 90s or the moral panics over the rock and roll in the 50s. But there is a much deeper, much more technical history of censorship that has nothing to do with what was being said and everything to do with the vibrations themselves. There are certain frequencies, certain intervals, and certain tuning systems that have been quite literally banned because of the physical and psychological toll they take on the human body. Take the legend of Gloomy Sunday, the so-called Hungarian suicide song. Written in 1933, the song was eventually banned by the BBC. The official reason was that it was too detrimental to wartime morale. But the urban legend goes much deeper. It was claimed that the specific melody structure of the song, the way the intervals resolve, was so effective at inducing despair that it was linked to dozens of suicides across Europe. I stand in the midst of this deadly success as an accused man. This fatal fame hurts me. I cried all of the disappointments of my heart into this song, and it seems that others with feelings like mine have found their own hurt in it. While the suicide part might be a myth, the BBC's ban was very real. They didn't just ban the lyrics, they banned the entire arrangement. They were afraid that the frequency of the grief captured in that recording was contagious. But why would the sound be dangerous? To understand that, we have to look at psychoacoustics, the study of how we perceive sound. Some frequencies and some textures are more difficult for the human inner ear and brain to process. A psychological clash that can trigger reactions from overstimulation to stress, disgust, and even pain. Our brains are hardwired to react to specific patterns.
In general, the human ear prefers the sound of simpler ratios to more complex ones. A ratio like the square root of 2 to 1 will sound dissonant.
For example, in the Middle Ages, the Catholic Church reportedly banned a specific musical interval known as the tritone, or the diabolus in musica, the devil in music. The tritone is a restless, dissonant sound. It's exactly 3 whole steps apart, and it creates a sense of unresolved tension that feels deeply wrong to the human ear. To the medieval church, the dissonance wasn't just an aesthetic choice, it was an invitation to the demonic.
Because of how dissonant and unresolved the tritone was, church officials were afraid that if monks were to sing it, the devil himself would appear.
They believed that certain mathematical ratios in music were divine, and others were satanic. In medieval and Renaissance music theory, which was often characterized by mathematical and philosophical principles of harmony, the tritone did not fit well into the system of perfect intervals due to its complex frequency ratios. By banning the tritone, they weren't just policing music, they were policing the spiritual state of the listener. If you fast forward to the 1970s, you'll hear that same forbidden interval as the foundation of heavy metal, specifically in the opening riffs of Black Sabbath. But I didn't know anything about the last note being a tritone. I didn't know what the term even represented, though I knew I liked the sound of it and the feel we got from it. They were using a band frequency to trigger a feeling of darkness. Then there is a great frequency war of the 20th century. 432 Hz versus 440 Hz. If you spend any time in the more experimental corners of the internet, you'll find a massive conspiracy theory claiming that the global standard for tuning instruments, a 440 Hz, was introduced as a form of social engineering.
When that music is based upon a tuning standard, purposely removed from the natural harmonics found in the sacred numbers and the Fibonacci series of nature, the result may be the psychic poisoning of the mass mind of humanity.
The theory suggests that 440 Hz is disharmonious with the natural vibrations of the universe and was promoted to create tension, aggression, and a state of high alert in the public. Conversely, proponents of 432 Hz believe it's a healing frequency that resonates with the Earth itself. While mainstream science largely dismisses this as a myth, the fact that thousands of people believe their mental health is being sabotaged by a global tuning standard shows just how much power we attribute to sound.
The term cycles per second was not accurately measured until 1834 when the Savart wheel and the tonometer were invented. No one before 1834 could have intentionally tuned their instruments to A432 or A440 for that matter.
We feel instinctively that certain frequencies can correct us while others can break us.
In fact, the BBC required their orchestras to tune to A440 instead of A439 because 439 is a prime number, and that frequency was difficult to generate electronically.
And sometimes they can really break us. Infrasound is sound that is below the threshold of human hearing, usually under 20 Hz. You can't hear it, but you can feel it in your chest, your bones, in your internal organs. So much has been said about infrasound. It's been associated with just about everything from beam weapons to bad driving. It's wonderful to be able to examine the evidence. In the late 1990s, an engineer named Vic Tandy was working in a medical lab that was rumored to be haunted. He felt the classic symptoms of a haunting: cold sweats, anxiety, and the sight of a gray figure in his peripheral vision. Tandy didn't call a priest. He brought in an oscilloscope. He discovered a standing wave of 18.9 Hz vibrating in the room, caused by a newly installed extractor fan.
Now, Tandy calculated the frequency of the sound at about 19 Hz. This frequency is important. The range of human hearing starts at 20 Hz, so Tandy's fan wasn't audible. It's what's known as infrasound.
That specific frequency is almost exactly the resonant frequency of the human eyeball. The ghost he was seeing was his own eyeball vibrating, creating visual hallucination. The ghost frequency proved that sound could bypass the conscious mind entirely and attack the nervous system directly. This is why during times of conflict, the censorship of sound becomes a matter of national security. During the 1991 Gulf War, the BBC issued a banned list of 67 songs. It included obvious titles like Killing in the Name, but it also included Walk Like an Egyptian and Give Peace a Chance. They weren't just looking for political messages, they were looking for anything that could trigger an emotional response they couldn't control. They were managing the frequency of the public mind.
It doesn't really matter if the church banned the tritone or not in the Middle Ages, because that's what people believe. And if enough people believe it, it becomes the truth.
Even today, as we move into the era of sonic weapons and high-intensity ultrasound, the question remains, who gets to decide which sounds are safe?
So the US has used sonic weapons against its enemies. But have the enemies of the US used sonic weapons to attack Americans? Turns out, they have.
We are surrounded by a world of frequencies we cannot see, yet they dictate our moods, our heart rates, and our very perception of reality. The next time a song makes your hair stand on end, or a specific hum in a room makes you feel like you need to run, remember, it might not be your imagination. You might just be encountering a forbidden frequency. A sound that, for one reason or another, was never meant to be heard. Wish you a good day and thank you for watching.